guys, welcome back. I'm just hopping on to go over how I straighten my hair and the products I use on my hair when I'm straightening it, and let's get started. So first one is the L'Oreal Sleek It Iron Straight Heat Spray. It's up to 450 degrees. I absolutely love this heat spray. I just kind of take it and spray it on the underneath side of my hair. I'm not sure if you can see all of this. And then I rub it in, and then I will go back through and brush it just to make sure that it's even and not too wet in areas. And it smells amazing as well. Normally I will have a clip so that I can put my hair up with, but it is currently in my car, so when I have my windows down, I have something to put my hair up with because I hate when my hair's in my face while I'm driving. So I just have a big old scrunchie today. All right. And then I part my hair down the center and then rebrush it just because I was messing with it. And then while I'm straightening my hair, I thought I would go over my birth story just because it has been a month today since I went into labor with my son, and he's a month old tomorrow. So what better time to talk about it? But first, I am using a ion hair straightener. I've had it for a little while and I absolutely love it. It's the Magnesium Pro and it goes up to 450. I set mine at 430. I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's buttons on the inside here that you can, like the on and off button and then the heat buttons, and then it's got the digital screen right here. I use a higher temperature because I have thicker hair and it takes a little while for my hair to straighten, so I always just start higher and then I always go lower. So it was a month ago today, it was Father's Day. I was headed to my parents' house to get some swim clothes to go to my boyfriend's parents' house, and we were gonna go swimming. And I got to my parents and I was like, oh, stepped out of the car. My mom was getting ready to go. My boyfriend asked where she was going, and she was like, going to the store to get some stuff for dinner. And he's like, well, she's having the baby today. Like, oh, okay, thanks. I thought we were going swimming, not having a baby, but that's okay too. Like, I would love to have him here. And I stepped out of my car and I kind of jumped and was like, oh, I think I peed myself. Because it was just a little tiny gush, kind of like when you sneeze and you sneeze too hard, you're like, oh, I kind of dribbled. Like, it was like one of those feelings. And I went to step and it happened again, and I was like, no, I think my water just broke. My mom's like, yep, go to the hospital. So we got back in my car. My boyfriend drove me to the hospital. I called them to let them know, because that's what you're supposed to do, and told them that I think my water broke. And the closer I got to the hospital, the more my water started breaking. And it continued to break. And I started having like gushing fluid, which you may have just some dribble, you may have like the whole thing break at once. It's all different. But mine started as just a couple little dribbles here and there, and then was like running down my legs. Probably TMI, I'm sorry. As I was walking into the hospital. And when I got to the floor, it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the doctor came in and checked to make sure that that my water had broke, which I knew I was already dilating because the week prior when I was at my doctor's appointment, I was already 4 to 5-ish centimeters dilated with no contractions, no evidence that I was going to go into labor anytime soon other than I was dilating. So we had actually set up my induction for the following Friday. So this was Sunday, and I was set to be induced on Friday, June 25th, because my due date was June 24th. And my son had other plans. He decided on Father's Day he wanted to enter the world. And so they made sure that my water had broke, which they call it rupturing of the membranes. And the doctor looked and he said, yep, she's ruptured, we're keeping her. So I got moved to my room that I was going to deliver in. I was put on the monitor and I was contracting, but I wasn't feeling the contractions. And baby was fine, everything was good. The doctor said to have me walk, to get things progressing a little bit by myself. If not, they would have to give me a little bit of the Pitocin to help speed up my contractions and make them stronger, and then help me dilate more. And about 6 o'clock, the doctor was so busy that the nurse checked me and was like, yeah, you're around the 5-6 still. So they ordered the Pitocin, started it at 9 p.m. My nurse left at 11, and my new nurse came in. And this is where things take a change. Every 30 minutes they come in and they up your Pitocin because they can't give you too much Pitocin at once because it helps you contract, and they don't want to rupture your uterus because then you can bleed out and then the baby can be in danger and it's just a mess for everyone. So every 30 minutes, this nurse was coming in and was upping my Pitocin. And every time she'd come in, she would ask, how's your pain? Well, I don't have any. She's like, well, I can see it on the monitor that you're contracting, but I still couldn't feel it. So now it's been 10 hours roughly that I've been at the hospital. I've been contracting the whole time. I just wasn't feeling it. And I wasn't dilating any more than I already had. So I went to sleep on and off while my Pitocin was running. And she came in right around 2 a.m. and asked how they were. I said, they're getting a little stronger, not terrible. Like, I compared them to a period cramp because that's what they felt like to me. It was just a strong period cramp. And she upped it to 12. And about 2:05, I had been laying on my left side. About 2:05, I was like, oh, yep, that one's a little more intense. This is going to get interesting. So I rolled over because normally repositioning helps with pain. And when I got to my back, I had another contraction, and it was 10 times stronger than the one I just had at 2:05. And next thing I know, it was just a constant pain. They were getting stronger, very strong. I could not lay still. I was in a lot of pain. They were getting very frequent. I was in so much pain I could not even hit my call light. I couldn't talk because my mom and my boyfriend were in the room. I couldn't even say a word to them and to tell them to call the nurse, and the nurse came in and she's like, okay. And she called the doctor. He came in and checked me and said I was in between the 6.5 mark for being dilated. So I'd only gone up like a half an inch or half a centimeter. And I was like, what went through my head was, I'm not making it without an epidural, which, if you know me, I didn't want an epidural at all. I was not, I always said that I would try without it, but if I needed it, I would take it, but I would do my best without it. Well, with these pains, I was not able to handle them. I couldn't relax. I couldn't lay still. And when the doctor was in, he asked if I had taken pain meds through my IV yet. And I said, no, I haven't had anything other than the Pitocin. He said, well, let's try that before an epidural. I said, okay. Right after I finished talking with him, I took another contraction while he was standing right there, and he was trying to talk to me and explain what he was going to give me, and he said, how about the epidural? And what went through my head was, no, let's try the pain meds first. What came out of my mouth was, I think so. When he said, do you want the epidural instead? I said, I think so. I wanted to say no, so I was really disappointed in myself that I couldn't say no, but I also knew that with him stating that I can prolong my dilation because I can't relax, your body has to relax because I can become at a standstill with the pain I was in. Well, I didn't want the pain any longer because it was excruciating, honestly. So I said, I think so, because I would rather me and my son be healthy than to have something happen to one of us because I'm being stubborn. So I said, I think so. They started getting me prepped. They brought the cart in. They reduced my Pitocin in half and started giving me a rapid fluid bolus to help get the Pitocin out of my system a little quicker and not so strong in my system, so that I could be in a more comfortable position so when they have to give me the epidural. Well, they brought the epidural cart in. She was getting me, while the nurse was getting me prepped, they called her on her little Vocera, like walkie-talkie thing, and said that they were going to give the epidural to room 2 instead. And every bad word went through my head because I was in so much pain that I just wanted this over with. And she looked at me and said, let's do hands and knees. Well, I couldn't move anywhere other than my right side when I was taking a contraction, and they were like just seconds apart. And she said it's the only thing that kept me sane when I was waiting for my epidural. So I said, okay, I don't know how to try it. I don't know how to do it, but let's try it. She's like, you're just going to turn over on your hands and knees. If you don't like it, just roll back over. I didn't even make it up onto hands and knees. I got on my knees, and while my bed was being raised so that my hands could be up where they should be, I was like, nope, can't do it, and I rolled over. Well, that had been just a few seconds right after they had checked me and said I was still around 6 centimeters, and I stood up because she said I can stand since I didn't have an epidural yet, that I could get up and move. So I tried to stand. Well, contraction knocked me back on my bed. That pain just took me down. And when I got back on the bed, I was like, oh, I have to push. Actually, I'm pushing because my body was actually pushing for me. And she's like, all right, I have to check you. And she's like, okay, the baby's really low. So she started calling for the doctor and the cart and extra hands because it was time to have this baby. And the doctor came in, he checked me, and I was like, no, I'm having a contraction, you have to wait. So as soon as my contraction was over, he checked me and said, yeah, you're at 9.5, and the baby's head is right here, so it's time to push. And then by the time he said that, my contraction was over, and I didn't have another contraction for at least 2 minutes, I swear. And when I started to have another contraction, there was no one beside me but my boyfriend, because the nurse was doing her thing, the doctor was getting his supplies situated because they were not prepared for this baby, not this quickly. And he was like, it's okay, just go ahead and push with your contraction. And he came back and he was, doing his job. And at this time, I didn't know what time it was. I didn't know what was going on. And I was kind of terrified, but ecstatic at the same time because I didn't have my epidural. So I was in full control, and I didn't have time for an epidural at this point. So we started pushing. I think I pushed for maybe 6 to 7 pushes, and my son entered the world at 2:54 a.m. So from the time of my first contraction till my son was born was barely 50 minutes, which is very strange and not normal for your first child. I know a lot of people will be in active labor for hours on hours or even days. And some of them will push for hours. So for me to be in active labor for 50 minutes and only push 6 times, it was amazing for me. I got extremely lucky because I was expecting a whole lot worse, and I couldn't be more thankful for the nurses because she was standing there the whole time telling me to breathe because, when you're in pain, you kind of just grit your teeth and do whatever you do, and you don't breathe. Well, she was like, just breathe. And every time I would take a contraction, she would tell me to breathe through it, which breathing through it, if you can, and you can remember to tell yourself, breathe through it, it truly does help. It really does. Because there were times that they were watching my numbers of my contraction go up, and I was just breathing, and it takes away your mind. It takes your mind off of the pain. And then my son was here, and the pain was all over. I just went into like a normal conversation talking about him and how he had the brightest red hair, and wondering what his weight was because he was long, but he didn't look like he weighed quite 8 pounds to me. And sure enough, he was 8 pounds 12 ounces and was 21 inches long. And I was shocked, honestly. But that was my story, and I hope that if you are pregnant or wanting to be pregnant, wanting to start a family, do your research on your epidurals because everyone is different, and there's pros and cons to everything. So just research it, do what you think is best for you and your child, and stick with it if you can. If not, it's okay to take an epidural. It's not like no one's gonna judge you or say, oh, well, you took an epidural because you're weak. No, I consider myself to have a really high pain tolerance, and I was even going to take an epidural because it's so strong of a pain. But it has to be, because it has to contract to help your baby get down into position. And hands and knees is one of the best positions to help your baby naturally come down. I did not know that, so when I flipped up, in the few seconds I was in hands and knees is what dropped him so quickly. So if you can stand hands and knees, do it. And walk a lot while you're in the hospital. I think I walked like 10 miles in my hospital floor. But, sorry, my eye itches. But back to my hair, because now that I have it straightened, I guess I could part it. I do use a couple other little products to gloss it a little more, make it a little more glossy, and then a finishing cream. So my mom actually got me onto this Lange product. It is the Satin Nectar Nourishing Gloss. I love it. I just squirt a little into my hand, not too much, just because my hair does tend to get oily very quickly. So I start at the end of my hair and run my fingers through it. I always pull my hair to one side and do it, and then I do the top, just very light, just so it doesn't get too much. Oh, turn my straight off. I just keep running my fingers through it until most of it's off of my hands. It is like a oil-based feel, so it does stay on my hands, so I will have to wash my hands when I'm done. And then the last thing I use is the John Frieda frizz-ease finishing cream. I absolutely love this because I have frizzy hair, especially if it's hot. And in my area and state, it gets humid and my hair will frizz really bad. So I just do the same thing. I start with my ends, and then I normally don't put a whole lot. Like, I just run just my fingertips up here. I don't even put the palms of my hands on the top of my hair, just because I don't want that extra product to make my hair too oily and greasy looking, because it will do that, especially with my hair color, because my roots are darker than the rest of my hair at the moment. And then I just brush through it, and sorry guys, I'm looking at my mirror to make sure that it looks right. And then voila, my hair is straight. I hope you guys liked the story. If you have any questions or comments or want to know anything else about delivery, I can just tell you what I know. But thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks guys.